Hey guys, just here with JHart Modelworks. It has been a long build series, but it is finally time to wrap up the build on the Revell 69 Mustang Restomod with the C1 body kit on it. We're in the home stretch, so all we got to do is all the finishing up bits around the body and we're done. So let's go ahead and get the camera flipped around and get to work. Alright guys, we're going to start by finishing off the engine bay. If you remember in the last video, I did not have the air filter installed, and that's just because it doesn't quite fit right in the hood, so I needed to do some measurements and design this duct where I could duct it off to the side and down into this little corner. Just add a little bit of glue, tuck that in place, and make sure that the hood still fits and clears properly. Next, we're going to start working on our headlights, and we're going to be using some Bob Smith Super Gold Plus. This is a clear safe CA glue. We're just using our mechanical pencil to put in tiny drops of glue along this ridge. We're then going to use a bit of blue tack, kind of molded into a point, to pick up and place our clear lenses. And then we'll just stick our fingernail on there to hold it down into place and press it into position. And repeat that again on the other side. And it wouldn't be one of my videos if I wasn't off camera. And once I get it in place, I'm just going to use my rubber tip tweezers to kind of just nudge it and make sure everything is down firmly. Alright, that is looking really good. So next we're going to detail paint the Mustang logo on the grille, and we're going to do this with some Revell Model Air Silver. This is a great detail paint. We're going to tap the eraser end of a mechanical pencil into that paint, and we're going to gently tap it against our raised surfaces. This is going to effectively act like a rubber stamp, and as we do this over and over again, we may have to pick up some more paint and do a couple of layers, but it will eventually give us paint just on the raised surfaces. Now you don't want to press too hard, as you will get the paint down in there. We just want to hit the tops. Now we're going to assemble our headlights, and to hold these, I just stick the back end into a ball of blue tack. It holds them really nice and snug, keeps them in place, and I have a much larger object that I can hold without getting my fingers all over in the glue and in the way. Now we're going to use a small bit of blue tack formed into a small point to pick up our clear lens and set that down into our glue. It may take a little bit of fiddling to get the blue tack to let go, but blue tack is generally low tack, so it doesn't take much. One down, one more to go. And now we're going to work on getting our grille in place. We're going to be using some CA glue for this. We are going to be applying some CA glue to the sides. I'm sorry I am out of frame for a lot of this, but we're going to apply some CA glue to both sides as well as along the underside of the grille where it sits on the body. We will then very carefully pick it up and slide it into place. Make sure you have no glue on your fingers. That will be a constant theme in this video. Alright, now we're going to glue in our headlight buckets. We're going to add some CA glue using our mechanical pencil to this front surface where the headlight sits. We're going to put the headlight on some blue tack, tap that down in there and twist it to get it to let go, and then we quickly want to line up the glass. There are little rectangles in the glass and you want them to be straight. I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. And it looks like I used tweezers for this side. And that is why I use blue tack instead of tweezers, because sometimes parts fall like that, and if I had gotten glue on that lens, it would have been a mess. We lucked out this time though. Alright, now it's time for some turn signals. We're going to apply some CA glue right on this little lip, right underneath the grill. And we have these oddly shaped little bits that I have painted with some Tamiya clear orange over a bright silver. We're just going to tuck those into that opening and make sure that they get pushed all the way down so they don't stick out. I believe the other side hangs up and I have to use my fingernail to actually push it in. Yep, just like that. Needed a little extra force. Now for the bumper, and I wasn't really happy with the bumpers for this car. So there are two little beams that stick out, which I thought should have been enough to hold this. It was not, so I ended up adding a little bit of glue to the front edge on the front of the car as well. Be careful when doing this because you can get glue everywhere if you are not. You definitely want to make sure you don't squeeze too hard and get the glue to ooze out. So I did end up putting some, again, on the front of the car as well as on the inside of that bumper. Check my fingers again for glue and then carefully set that into place and just held that till it set, and it took a good 30 seconds or so. But yeah, those little tabs are not enough to hold this bumper in place. Now that the bumper is in place, we're just going to add a little CA glue down here, and that's for our license plate plinth. It just glues right up into that little notch in the underside of the bumper, and that is all that holds that thing in place. So don't hit it or bump it when you're moving it around or putting it in your cabinet. Just use some pliers to give it a good little nudge, make sure it's firmly down. We will do the license plates themselves at the end of the video. So the front end is done, we're moving to the rear, and the reverse lights are these tiny little things that have these tiny little posts. We're going to go ahead and apply some CA glue to the back here. We're going to stick it on some blue tack. Blue tack is super handy. We're just going to go ahead and slot that little post into the hole and then twist it. And then we can just press that firmly into place. They're a little, now these could be really fiddly and you could ping them off into outer space if you were using tweezers, but using blue tack is a much safer bet and makes this a much easier process. Next up is our gas tank, and it really should have been the trunk lock, but we're going to go ahead and apply some CA glue into the recess where the gas tank goes here in the center. Now there is a little Mustang on here, so you want to make sure that you get this lined up so that that is straight and it's not like crooked or pointing off into the air or anything like that. And now we're going to do the trunk lock. In the body prep video, if you remember, I drilled a 0.5mm hole in the back of the car where the trunk lock is, and now we're going to re-drill that just to make sure that none of the paint or clear fill that in too much for our 1.2mm top studio rivets. Now, in a tip I learned from Chris, we're going to apply some Tamiya tape to a toothpick, and we're going to wrap it around a little, but then we're going to twist it and continue wrapping so that it is now sticky side out. We're going to be using some Elmer's glue for this. It is a lot easier to clean up. We're going to nudge the rivet head onto the tape so that the post stands straight out. We're going to dip the post in the Elmer's glue. And I really lucked out on this one and got this in one go. Normally this is like a 10 or 20 attempt process for me, but it just went straight in. We're going to tap it with the toothpick to make sure it's fully seated, and then we can clean up any excess glue with a wet cotton bud. Now for the rear bumper, and the fit on this is not completely amazing. I wish I'd done a little bit more work. I also kind of wish I had added in some metal pins and drilled some holes so that this would be more stable. Instead, we're going to add a small bead of CA glue to the underside of the ridge for that back panel, and along the bottom edge where the bumper is going to sit so that both the top and bottom edges will touch glue. Then we carefully pressed it into place. You do not want to push too hard because you don't want glue oozing out around the bumper. And then we're going to add some CA glue to the underside. This tiny little ridge here is the seating point for the license plate plinth. Moving on to the sides, and this time we are going to start with those door locks. We are going to re-drill the holes again, but be very careful. You don't want to be really rough in this process. You can break or chip off the paint. Once again, we're going to dip our rivet into the Elmer's glue and then just drop it into place. And again, both of these just dropped right in. I had no fight with any of these locks. And again, we're going to clean up our excess Elmer's glue with a wet cotton bud and water. That's all you need on the cotton bud, is just water. And we are back with the drill. We're going to carefully re-drill the holes for our door handles. In the body prep video, I shaved off the kit's door handles because I 3D printed a set, and there are some posts that I added to those so that I could get them to glue in properly. Just going to go ahead and slide those posts into the holes, but not all the way in. We're going to leave a little bit of the post sticking out. We're going to take our mechanical pencil and we're going to put a tiny drop of Bob Smith Super Gold Plus. It's a less harsh CA glue, and then we're just going to nudge it into place. Now the other one I was completely off camera for, so this is the only one you get to see me do. And now we're going to move on to the mirrors. These are my 3D printed bullet style mirrors. I designed them with a small 1/2 millimeter hole for some metal rod. It allows me to pin these into place. Normally I glue them in place on the inside, but I forgot before I mated the chassis to the body, and so we got to do them from the outside here. Again, we're just going to add some CA glue and drop them into place. These are available on my Colts 3D store, so if you have a printer, you can print your own. When I designed these, no one else was offering bullet style mirrors, and I've wanted them on several builds now. Now, on the C-pillars, there are these chrome Mustang logos, and you want to make sure that you don't have them upside down, like I did there. The body has very shallow indents for where these need to go. We're going to add a tiny drop of CA glue into one of those indents, and then we will very carefully, using a pair of tweezers, set it into place, making certain that the horse is right side up and is straight across and not tilted at an angle. We're going to repeat that on the other side as well. And we are looking really good so far. Now we're going to assemble our wheels and tires. Now I did 3D print these. These are BBS FIRs. These are the wheels off of the new Ford GT. The way I printed up these tires, there's a side where all the supports were. It's pretty rough. I kind of sanded it as smooth as I could. We also have the other side that has all of our detailed lettering. We want to make sure that lettering faces out. So I put some glue on the outside of the barrels, and now I'm just going to set them on my desk and drop the wheel in place, and then press it down, and then make sure everything lines up nice and smooth. Now for the rear brakes, if you remember in the chassis video, I showed that I designed these mounts and attached my brakes into one piece, and these allow me to modify the axles to push the wheels out in line with the wide body fenders, and the ones on the front allow me to actually drop the body, allowing me to set the ride height where I want it. Additionally, the way I do these, it allows me to change the wheel fitment from Revell's female style fitment to the Tamiya's male style, which I personally prefer. We're just going to add a little bit of CA glue just to drop onto the nubs on the axle. Now I trimmed these down in the chassis video, and then we're going to press these mounts into place. You'll notice that I have my finger against the opposite side of the axle, so that while I'm pressing this on, the force I'm generating isn't pressing against the leaf springs or where they connect to the body. All of this force is being absorbed by my finger on the other side. This keeps me from breaking the leaf springs or the suspension. These parts are actually pretty fragile. It really sucks when you're trying to put a wheel or something on and the suspension breaks, and then you have a whole bunch of parts that you've got to go repair, and then it just kind of looks bad. Supporting the axle like that will really help prevent that from happening. Again, we're going to put our thumb on the other side, and then we're going to drop the other side in, and I don't know why this one required a lot less coercion. With our rotors in place, we're now going to glue on our calipers. In my experience, the calipers are usually positioned towards the center of the car. We also want to make sure that our Brembo logos face out. I really like these 3D printed Brembo brakes. The logos are actually inset, so you can paint them up in whatever color you want using a lacquer, then come back over them with a water-based acrylic. And after that dries, you can just take a wet cotton bud and rub away the acrylic, and then only the white paint that is down in that logo remains in place. We're going to go ahead and press our wheels into place, and these are pretty snug. I didn't bother gluing these in place. The front wheels are a totally different story though. For the fronts, I designed these to not only have a spacer, but also a drop to them. So this hole here will be the bottom, and the center of the wheel will be lifted slightly. It's about 2, maybe 3 millimeters. I can't remember. I really think it's 3. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 3 because I think I originally designed them with a 4 millimeter drop, and the engine came real close to hitting the ground. So this is the left hub. Our brake is going to go over on this side over here so that it will face towards the middle of the car. So because of the way everything gets assembled on the fronts, we're going to go ahead and glue the calipers on first, and we're going to make sure that we position them so that again they face towards the center of the car. We'll repeat that for the other side as well. And then it's time to assemble. Now this is where things need to be done quickly. We're going to glue both sides onto the axle mounts, and we're going to line them up as best as we can, then push the wheels in and set the car down on them so that hopefully they will level out. And we'll have a few seconds, if necessary, to make some minor adjustments to make sure we get it as level as possible and the car sits on all 4 wheels. Again, positive pressure on the other side of the axle. We're going to drop our wheel mount into place and try to get this on as straight up and down as we can. We're then going to get the other side glued on. Again, put our thumb on the other side and push it down. A little bit of twist and push. Line it up. And now we want to push our wheels in, and we're not even going to take the time to glue them in place. We just want the posts in the slots so that we can get this car on the ground as quick as possible. And we lucked out and it sits perfect. Now, unlike the rear wheels, the front wheels are really not that snug at all. In fact, one of them just falls out. So we are going to take them back off, and we're going to go ahead and add a touch of glue to the post in the center and then glue the wheels back into place. I know it looks like I just grabbed the wrong wheel. I didn't. There's a cut in the edit, and during that cut I had repositioned the wheels. During the voiceover recording, I actually went and rechecked just to make sure that I had them on right. They are right. Not that I could do anything about it if they weren't now, because they are glued in place. Onto the spoilers. The C1 Trans kit contains some really nice front and rear spoilers. Unfortunately, I'm not using them because I can't find them. I can't even find the box. Now the kit's front spoiler contains 3 ridiculously small mount points. We're going to add some glue to those as well as to the leading edge, and then we're going to set that into place on the body and hold it very still for at least a minute to make sure that glue sets. A tip I like to use for the rear spoiler to get it in place is to put some tape on it. Then I'm going to position the spoiler exactly where I want it. I'm going to make sure I get it lined up nice and straight and even. Once I have it where I want it, I'm going to press that tape into place. We're then going to use the tape to fold the spoiler back, almost like a hinge. Then we want to apply some CA glue to the feet of the uprights. And then we're going to use the tape to line everything back up again and get the feet down in place without smearing glue all over the body. If I had known I was using this spoiler, I would have done this during the body prep. I would have drilled holes and added pins so that this will be a lot more secure. The tape left a little bit of residue on the spoiler, so I used a paper towel with some UMP airbrush cleaner and just gently rubbed. UMP airbrush cleaner will remove Tamiya tape residue. During the body prep video, we sanded off the kits molded in hood pins, and we're going to replace them with these beautiful ones from ProTech. We're going to add a tiny drop of CA glue to the hood, then using a toothpick with a tiny blob of blue tack on the end, we're going to pick up the photo etch and set it into place. We're going to repeat that process on the other side. Now, sometimes blue tack doesn't want to let go of your photo etch, so always make sure you have a little bit visible so that you can get your fingernail on it, and then you can hold it down while you lift up the blue tack. And then because I'm me, I'm going to take a pair of tweezers and make sure that I have the hood pins lined up. I printed the decals for this build at the same time I did the ones for the Porsche group build, and since I didn't know when I was going to finish things, I printed up a few registration stickers for every month for the rest of the year, as well as a bunch of toll tags. Since the decals have white in them, we used white decal paper. Because that decal paper is white, you have to trim right up to the very edge of your design. Once we have them trimmed off, we're going to go ahead and apply some microset to the windshield. We will then dip our decal in warm water for a few seconds, set it on the glass, then using another set of tweezers, we're going to nudge the decal off the backing paper and remove the backing paper. We can then gently nudge it into place, and then roll out any excess moisture with a cotton bud. We're going to repeat that process for our toll tag. The toll tag technically should go underneath the rear view mirror. However, I don't really like the way the rear view mirror looks with that post molded into the glass, so I'm going to nudge my toll tag up just a little bit so that it covers over the post. Yes, it's technically inaccurate, but it looks a lot better to me. We'll remove our excess moisture, and then we'll nudge it back into place because we always knock it out of place when we do that. I'm a member of the Model Car Club Down to Scale, so I have added in some down to scale logos in my decal sheet. We're going to go ahead and toss one of these into our handy dandy micro mark hole punch. We're going to punch one out here with the hammer, and then we'll set it in place in the rear quarter window. There we go, a nice little bit of detail. It's not overly obvious, but if you're really looking at the car, it's something you'll pick up. Now it's time for our license plates. Unlike the registration stickers, I don't really have to cut super close to the design on these. I will end up doing that later, but for right now, I'm just going to grab a couple of these, stick them in the warm water, and we're going to apply some microset to some aluminum foil that we got out of a soda can. Keep a couple of soda cans handy, it's really useful for some building material. Once we have it in place, we will remove our excess moisture and let it sit to dry. Our decals have had plenty of time to dry, so now we're going to go ahead and cut them off and trim them up. Now is when we're going to trim right up to the decal. Because I was able to leave some excess decal on there, when I'm cutting them like this, I don't have to worry that the edges are going to curl up on me, because everything is dried solid down to place and the edges are getting cut off. Now Texas plates do have rounded corners, so while I'm trimming these up, I'm going to make sure to cut the corners at a little bit of an angle so that they round off. The plates are looking good, but they're not ready to go on the car yet. We're going to go ahead and add some ProTech Photo Etch bolt heads to them. I have no idea how the camera got zoomed in this much, but it results in me being either out of frame or out of focus throughout this whole process. Now, this is the same process I do on pretty much all of my builds, so go and check out the Nova or the Challenger build if you really want to see how this is done. But for the most part, we're just going to drop a tiny drop of CA glue on the license plate. Then we're going to use a toothpick moistened with some saliva. It has just enough surface tension to pick up the photo etch and drop the photo etch into the glue. We then press that photo etch down and let it set. We will repeat that for the bolt on the other side as well. And here's our final results. Now we're ready to glue the license plates into place. We're going to go ahead and apply some CA glue to the license plate plinth on the front. We will then use some tweezers to set it in place and then press it down. And then we'll repeat that process on the rear. Alright guys, that is a wrap for this video. I am really happy with this one. I love this color combination. I think dark red and a dark metallic silver or gray is probably my favorite color combo for cars, and these two colors are incredibly striking together. That C1 body kit gives the car a fantastic sense of presence and a little bit more aggression. I wish I had the spoilers, but it is what it is. I think, in fact, I may have been the one who accidentally threw the box away thinking they were in my project box. I don't know for sure, but it probably was me. Stay tuned. My plan is to release a Sunday model cars and coffee video on this one. We'll see, but that's definitely my plan, and we're going to go into more detail on the build in that video. As for right now, my focus is going to shift entirely to the garage diorama. Let's be honest, that's where my focus has been for weeks now. I am obsessed with it and having so much fun with that project. The Dedicated Enthusiast Super Show is coming up September 21st. I really want to have that finished up in time, or at least close enough to take it to the show. If you're in the area or reasonably close, come out to the show. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be in Denton, Texas. That's north of Dallas and Fort Worth. I would love to meet more of the YouTube gang, and I'm sure the Dedicated Enthusiast guys would love having you guys come out. Once that's done, I will then start on the Monogram Trans Am for Pops and the Super B for Mitchell. A huge shout out to my subscribers and to anyone who has made it this far in the video. You all are amazing. I appreciate you greatly. Thanks for watching. I always appreciate you guys hanging out and building with me, and I will catch you on the next one.